The Square Ball Podcast.
Hello and welcome to Propaganda, the show where we find out what's been said about Leeds United. It's brought to you with Levi Solicitors. You can get 10% discount on your legal fees at levisolicitors.co.uk/the Square Ball. Dan, Michael and Moscow. Part one then is where we find out what Leeds fans have been saying about the most recent game, which is the game against Spurs at the weekend. Feedback from our TSB Plus subscribers on our performance on the match ball and Leeds United's performance.
More relevantly.
Yes. Although, well, the first one is it's people going on the attack. We were too gloomy. Roger, Kit, Aidan and Toby all saying we were too gloomy. But this is the point, isn't it? In the wake of a defeat, I'm generally quite sad. A couple of days down the line now, as it is on Tuesday, I'm all right again.
I felt better, actually. We'll come on to it. But listening to the Spurs fans, I felt defensive of our performance all of a sudden. I was like, no, we were good. Bollocks to it. We were good. We were good. I mean, Roger is the one who actually has picked out that we were too gloomy. This was another pretty good performance.
I was going to say Roger.
And then
yeah.
It develops. It was another pretty good performance. To be honest, we may go down in the end. But we all said we'd stay up.
We were all being happy a minute ago, Roger.
So, Roger doesn't mind.
Don't mind if we're playing good football. He says, and the repeated second half fade is a worry. So Roger is saying we may go down, and he's worried about the second half performances, but we were too gloomy on the match ball. Cheers, Rog.
Gloomy old Roger. It was a weird reaction from probably the usual gloomier quarters rather than in this room. I feel exempt from gloom. But the pre-match vibe when you saw there's no Rafinha, there's no Rodrigo, obviously there's never been and never will be a Bamford. Ayling's gone, there's no Robin Koch, all that kind of stuff. I got 6-1 on Leeds United to win that game. So that's
how much did you win from that?
Well, Leeds didn't win, so I lost money, which is why people shouldn't bet, no matter what the adverts say.
You've got your Roma investment, I suppose, haven't you? Your socios.
Yeah,
that's your retirement.
We've had a new socios poll, by the way.
Have we?
There's a new socios poll. We'll do it in the main weekly show.
That's like it's a cliffhanger, in it. People don't want to see that.
Yeah, so we're cross-selling across the other show now. This is how it works. Yeah, listen to that one, watch that one, which is YouTube and the audio version as well. You could watch one and then listen to the other just to bump our numbers up. So it's a good way to do it.
Try and sync it up. Listen on, when people try and sync the TV with the radio.
You won't be able to do it because the audio version is very slightly shorter because I shorten the silences between speech, whereas we don't do that with the video. So,
well, magic's gone now.
I'll peek behind the curtain there for you. Anyway, back to this. Gloom. Yeah, I mean, look, we played great in the first half. We lost it in the second half, so I naturally felt quite gloomy because that's the way it goes, isn't it? When you've glimpsed, the prize is there within reach. Oh, we looked great in this game, and then we threw it away. We destroyed that prize.
And as I was saying, everybody thought we were going to get battered, and we weren't.
Yes,
that was the summary of the point I was coming to.
I never went into that thinking we were going to get battered. I thought we'd be all right and competitive, which we were. We were probably better than I anticipated, but it's still disappointing to get in front, especially with the timing of the goal just before half-time. It's just frustrating, wasn't it? And I think, going back to what I probably badly expressed on the match ball, was kind of every time we lose, and the fact that we are now here a third of the way through the season, as you rightly pointed out, Michael, with only 2 wins on the board, it does sort of expose the more systematic shortcomings of the Leeds United setup. And that's not to suggest that Bielsa doesn't know what he's doing, because that's one of the things I get attacked, I think, don't I, at some point in this, or heroes and villains. Somebody goes on the attack versus me, I noticed in the notes.
I know someone was criticising you on Twitter as well, I think, for being too negative. I think it was for dwelling on the Calvin thing, I think, which, in fairness to you, that was developing very much as we were.
Yeah, and I did say, I went back and listened to the final couple of sentences of the show, which was, we'll find out if there's anything in that or not. That was my closing sentence. So, up yours, whoever it was.
You're no better than Jamie O'Hara.
Not interested in your criticism. But yeah, the lack of depth and Bielsa's insistence on having the thin squad, Kevin, Todd and Ding all picking it out. I mean, it's true, isn't it? It's a third of the way through the season now, as you pointed out to me, Michael. You did the maths. And it is costing us, unfortunately. But it's kind of what you get with Bielsa, isn't it? It's all or nothing.
Yeah, Ding was pointing out that Bielsa needs more critiquing, saying this was completely predictable. And he's concerned that he is partially, slowly dismantling his own legacy, which I don't think we're at yet.
I don't think we'll ever be at. I mean, I don't even know what those words mean.
Well, what it means
in any
is
sensible way.
But I think what he's getting at is if we come up short this season and we do end up going down, then it's kind of what was all that for? It was
for 3 absolutely magnificent seasons, it got us out of the doldrums that we'd been in for 16 years, and even if returned us to them, we're piles of parachute money in a club in a much better state than it found it, with a style of play better than I've ever seen in my lifetime supporting Leeds United, that has been installed through the academy levels so that the future players at the club are better than they've ever been. The things that Bielsa has done for this club, to then come out of it and go, oh, well, he played Tyler Roberts too many times and we lost some games in the last season and I'm going to spit my dummy out.
Well, all I will say is good luck making that argument on the day that we go down. If we go down, which we won't, obviously.
Yeah, I don't.
Because I don't want to be accused of being negative.
I don't think we will go down.
And even if we do go down, it will always be remembered that Bielsa is the person who took us up. Anybody could take us down. I don't know how many people could have taken us up the way that they did. I don't know. Do you remember your daughter's first day at school?
I don't know.
Well, do you remember your twins' first day at school?
Yeah, vaguely.
Wasn't it a beautiful, emotional moment? Wasn't it? Pride, excitement, joy.
You just got to get them out of the house.
It's kind of hard work because they cried quite a bit, so it's. I think maybe it's, as a non-parent, you don't realise what that day is like. It's not like in the movies.
Maybe their first words.
And there's relief baked into it as well, because like you get your house back then, and you can you go back home and you just sit down in a chair and go, God, it's quiet. I can actually think now.
But if they fail, for example, a maths test, would you regard their legacy as tarnished in your house? Everything good they've ever done.
I'm not sure this translates entirely. No,
I think this is a bad example. While I understand what you're getting at, Moscow, I just don't think it necessarily stands up to scrutiny. But I get what you're saying, because, like, do you know what the other side of this is? The other side of the coin is the Premier League shit, and I don't like it. I really don't like a lot of.
But you remember how bad the Championship was?
That's the other side. That is the other side of the coin. Is that the Championship is a hateful, dreadful place. I watched a bit of Derby and Bournemouth at the weekend, and I just thought that is just disgusting.
I remember speaking to it's the guy who does the Stoke fanzine, actually came and had a chat with me when it was Bielsa's first game, and he was saying, I'm kind of glad to be out of the Premier League. It's not been much fun recently, you're just sort of staying up. And then I think we dicked him on the first day in the Championship, and I'm sure after that and the rest of that season when they were basically terrible, he's probably thinking, oh, I kind of thought part of the deal of going down was that we get to win some games, but it's not quite working out. So it's fun when you win games, but yeah, we've got to remember it's mainly no fun.
That is at the root of it, isn't it? It's just winning, and unfortunately, because of the way the Premier League is, you tend to not win that many games, but then you don't need to win that many games to stay up. And I think when you just get caught in that kind of no man's land of just existing, I mean, at least there's the jeopardy of relegation here to add a bit of excitement.
Again, as part of Bielsa's legacy and achievements, is last season booking so many trends from promoted teams, and how we beat Manchester City, we beat Tottenham, we had an absolutely fantastic season all round. We beat Liverpool on the opening day. Everything was magnificent, and I just don't see why anybody. It's a choice. You can make a choice to remember how brilliant everything Bielsa has done has been, and then deal with the conclusion however you want. Even if we do go down, you can decide, does that destroy everything good he ever did, or is everything good he's ever done for us still absolutely magnificent and beautiful and wonderful experiences that we would exchange body organs to live through again? Oh, but we got relegated in the end. Don't care. It was good.
I do think there is an understandable frustration in the fact we don't have more.
We've not been relegated yet.
I think there is, though. I think that's mainly what it boils down to. Is people like, it would have just been a bit better if we had another midfielder.
But the other thing,
which is a fair point,
which midfielder? Because the club really clearly couldn't get any of the midfielders they liked. So do we just buy a midfielder that they didn't want?
I think there is a discussion to be had there about, and I think Phil Hay has written on about it, or he's touched on it maybe. I think he said it on one of the recent podcasts, actually, where maybe it doesn't have to be that we sign a 25 to £30 million footballer, although that is what Bielsa said in his post-match, wasn't it, about recruitment in January. That's the ballpark they want to shop in. Maybe, just maybe, the £10 million midfielder is enough for now to stabilise, because it's what I was on about with all these sort of shoot for the moon signings before. Sometimes they don't, if you put all your eggs into one basket, if that basket tips over and your egg falls on the floor and cracks, you don't have any eggs. And sometimes an inferior egg might be better than no egg. Does that work?
But then don't you just end up with a player you don't want?
Ultimately, yeah, but it's better than being relegated, isn't it?
Because how do you stay up with players you don't want?
Well, what I'm saying is you get players who are capable of keeping you up. Rather than kicking you on towards European spots, maybe, rather than going for all the internationals, we just get some good enough for now players.
Like Lewis O'Brien.
Well,
So that was clearly on the list, but Huddersfield were asking more money than we were prepared to pay for
Conor
that player.
Gallagher, Lewis O'Brien, and they still didn't get any. And you can't sit here and say that.
So after that, do we just go for a player that we don't want? Who's not good enough?
No, what I'm saying is have a better shortlist.
I suppose you're talking about basically signing people like, I don't know, to give an old equivalent, like John Pemberton or someone who was never felt like he was here forever, but you'd be like, well, he can do a job for a bit, can't he? And he's been to Sheffield.
Which, ironically, given that John Swift, who's the guy who's at Reading, is being linked, is somebody you would probably have gone, well, that's not inspiring if we'd have got him in the summer. But actually, now when you see what's happened in the season, if we can get him for a few million quid because he's out of contract in the summer and he sees us through, stabilises us, gives us that extra body in midfield, and he's in form as well, I'll do for now.
I mean, the midfield on Sunday was Click, Phillips, Forshaw. Who's missing?
John Swift at Reading, I just said.
Who's he replacing?
No, but when we started to lose it in midfield, which is what Bielsa said in his post-match, you take one of them off when they look knackered or they're getting overrun, and you put someone else on who can do more.
Mm.
But
it's not controversial to suggest you should have some options on the bench.
But you should have ones that you want, though, and that's the thing. There's a gamble either way. We said this the other week that signing players is a gamble because you don't know if they're going to work out. Not signing players is a gamble because you could leave yourself short, and the players that you've got might not perform the way they did before, or they might get injured. But I think you want to minimise your gambles, and if you're signing players that are not on your shortlist and are just there not for the sake of signing, but just thinking we need anybody, I feel like that's how signing.
I'm not advocating for that though. You're putting words in my mouth.
Well,
I'm
who
not
are
saying
we going to sign?
But I'm not a fucking football scout. I don't know.
But,
I don't know. I don't have access to fucking Y Scouts.
But the people who do have access to Y Scout and the people who are football scouts couldn't find a player that would fit the bill.
So there are no midfielders within a slightly cheaper price bracket that they could have found that may have fit the bill.
Do you think they wouldn't have signed one if they found one? They could get over the line, given that we were going for Conor Gallagher, we were going for Lewis O'Brien. They wanted a central midfielder.
I don't work for Leeds, I don't know.
Well, then why are you assuming that they didn't?
I just think, given all the football market that exists, could they or could they not have found a midfielder?
Well, they couldn't.
Well,
because otherwise they'd have signed them, because we had the budget to go and sign the players.
Maybe you need to redefine the parameters of what you're doing. And for example, talking about like short-term...
But then that's it. Redefining the parameters of what you're doing is dismantling what's good about what you are doing. It's settling for players who aren't going to do the job you need them to do. You get players that you don't want.
But we're talking about taking gambles there, and I think you look at Rodrigo as actually a relatively short-term gamble, if that's the right word, because he was pushing 30 when we signed him for an absolutely massive fee. So you need an instant return on him. You need him to just do a job. He's not going to be here for more than, 3-4 years? So why not somebody else?
Quite a long time. Fair
enough. Okay. Let's go back to the sheet, shall we? Michael shuffling around uncomfortably a bit while we scream at one another. We used to be such friends when we got promoted, and it's all fallen apart. Anyway, who else has been picked out?
Let's slag off some of their players rather than each other.
We're not slagging off each other, are we? We're talking about football. I've not criticised him.
Well, I think he took it as criticism.
I don't think he did.
I think you're suggesting
he's made of sterner stuff.
I think you're suggesting that there are more than 3 midfielders in the world.
Let's talk about luck. Well, let's talk about luck, because a number of people have picked out luck, and there is actually a genuine fair point there. Nathan, Boniem, Chris, and Jack have all picked out the lack of luck, and I think you did actually say so. Look, I'm now going to put some praise onto Moscow because this is what a discussion is. He did pick this out in the post-match when he was saying, like, in what world is it even remotely fair that their free kick hits the post and then falls perfectly for their player? That's just bollocks.
It did, and it felt like there were other chances in the game. There was Dan James put that little cheeky outside of the foot shot across goal. Gelhardt had a couple that were a bit too close to the keeper. I think one went over the bar. But it felt like in other circumstances, we probably get another. They don't get at least one of theirs, and it could just piss off that game.
In Nathan's point, actually, I didn't realise this was the case. 14 points we've now lost from winning positions this season. That's quite a lot, isn't it? Given that we haven't got 14 points on the board yet.
Yeah, it is a little bit worrying. It feels like the line between this season and last season is probably not all that great.
It's 3 points.
There are just... Well, yeah, that's true. From the feel of it, though, it just felt like last season, games like this, we got something from.
Spurs away, we lost 3-0.
We got dicked at Spurs away.
I mean, games
now you're the idiot.
I mean, games where we played fairly well is what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, we'd get something from it, and it feels like we've... And like, I highlighted I think on the match ball as well, like the Wolves and Leicester home games. It feels like they are games we might have won last year because we did probably
4-1 to Leicester at home.
I'm not talking about the exact
We never-
comparison of games. I'm talking about games in which we dominated for large periods and therefore could have won. It feels like we did win those games last season.
I'm not sure we dominated Leicester at home.
I think actually, you might be misremembering. The early part of the season was pretty shit.
Yeah,
wasn't
it was 4-1 to Leicester, 4-1 to Palace. It was back to back, wasn't it?
But we had, I think, at that point we'd kind of had a couple of sniffs of
beat Liverpool on the opening
We've
day.
beaten Liverpool, obviously.
We beat Sheffield United and Fulham, didn't we?
And we beat Man City as well. That was quite early, wasn't it? That was pre-Rafinha. So,
I mean, to be serious, it was a defeat and a draw with Man City. So even those results weren't.
But it's the fact we went toe to toe with them, and then we got. But what happened with Leeds last season is we got the rub of the green or the wins when we needed them, didn't we? It's just not quite happened yet this season. But the opportunity now exists going into the next set of games to get a few on the board.
The Spurs game is probably from this season is probably a better comparison to Liverpool on the opening day last season, where we played brilliantly and was great for long periods of the game. In a way that was maybe not expected against such a powerful and expensive opponent, and lost 4-3 because Mo Salah can just volley it in from absolutely anywhere when he wants to. So that would be a game I would compare it to. So we did lose some of those last season. A lot of it's that really good run after Christmas that surprised everybody and made us maybe feel like we were better than we ever were. Because even the Manchester City game that we won at the Etihad, we were down to 10 and got battered, and then managed to get a goal in the very last minute on the counter-attack, having defended brilliantly. It was a fantastic defensive performance, but it's not a game where we were, romping all over them, and we really taught Manchester City a lesson in any means. It just went our way, and there's maybe elements of luck, but then I don't know what you say about Liam Cooper's red card, and then also the foul on Rafinha weren't particularly lucky for us. Just maybe it's form, maybe it's just taking chances when they were there, and this season we're not taking chances when they're not there.
And also,
or when they are there. Like I was thinking mentally about Gelhardt's shot where he made room for himself and shot against Hugo Lloris, and he saved it. It was like a really good effort, but not a goal. Not any blame on him. It was actually quite positive to see that happening, but not getting those goals ticked away.
Another thing that was mentioned on the match ball was Conte as well and his behaviour. Gary and Darren both picked out, the fact that the Spurs fans booed at half-time, Darren picks out, saying that if Conte had any self-respect, he would tell them where to stick that job and quit immediately because they got booed off at half-time.
I mean, we'll come on to the Spurs fans and Conte in a bit, but I have basically managed to convince myself he's not a good manager. Having previously thought he was, I think the Spurs fans' reaction to it and his behaviour in this has made me think he's just a Neil Warnock character. He's an Italian Neil Warnock.
And Gary actually mentions him over-celebrating if they get a result against Bielsa because it means that much to them. And for whatever reason, they seem to be able to channel it into galvanising their players. Yeah, but a lot of teams do. Like, Tottenham didn't bother shooting for about a month, and then they had the cheek to score twice against us.
Only because it bounced off the post to someone for a tap-in.
Yeah, it's not fair.
They weren't. That's the thing in this game. I know they did score 2 goals, but they weren't carving us open particularly. I know Melia made a couple of decent saves in there, but it wasn't like we were under the cosh particularly. I know they had more of the ball in the second half, but we weren't getting. It didn't feel like it had an inevitability that they were going to score. It's not like they were constantly flashing shots past the post and carving us open and getting through on goal. It just felt like there was a slight weight of pressure there.
The change in it we actually picked up on in the match ball. Phil and Moscow's West Stand friend Ralph, Phil and Pennywise all picking out Calvin. So there's the post-match, the interview that we picked up that kind of unfolded as we were recording the match ball. Don't think there was much in that. There was definitely some frustration in his interview. You could tell in his language, and he took like a minute just to kind of pick his words at the start, didn't he? To think, how do I phrase this without slagging off either my teammates and or the manager? I don't know exactly who it was directed at. I can't really tell.
I think it was directed at Jeff Shreves for asking him stupid questions. He's developed a real passive-aggressive streak as Shreves, and you could hear it in the question, because the thing about asking him why he played further back in defence, he was brilliant.
Yeah.
And it worked. It was magnificent all the time that was there. And there's an easy explanation for it, is that Forshaw's available now. So you can put Forshaw into midfield, and you can put Calvin wherever you want. You can use him, and it's not a new thing for Calvin to play in our defence. It's not a new thing for Bielsa to use midfielders as defenders. It's fine. It's all right and normal and worked beautifully. And then you've got Jeff Shreves coming along going, "You were playing further back today, Calvin. Why? And if you're Calvin Phillips, you're thinking, what's his angle? Why is he asking me this weird question?" And his answer was very typical of Calvin Phillips when he talks about where his master played. When he says, "I don't know why he put me there," it's not a lie. But if you watch how Calvin Phillips played when he was there, he knew exactly what he was being asked to do. So he knew why he was there. He knew what the job was. But to him, he's the footballer. He's doing his job. If you want to know why he was put there, you ask Marcelo Bielsa what was behind the tactical decisions. It's not for Calvin Phillips to stand there and go, "Oh, well, Bielsa did the pre-match analysis and his scouts came up with this, and we had the data."
We did a tombola, and Kane came out for me, and that's where he put me. Can you believe it?
It's Calvin Phillips' place to describe what his job was, which he did go on to do. He said we wanted to be a bit more defensive. I was watching Harry Kane. Not to give the reason for it, because the reasons are the coach's domain.
Which he gave perfectly, did Bielsa. He said that because of the way Kane drops deep, essentially, he thought Calvin would be the best person equipped to do that. And he was, because he did it. And it was good.
It was an astute tactical move in the end, wasn't it? And actually, if you're talking about Bielsa undoing his hard work, etc., maybe there was a little microcosm of that in this game, because when he moved Calvin into midfield for a bit, it didn't work, because he said, didn't he, about all the different combinations he tried in midfield. It didn't work, so he moved him back. And it did feel like that was the moment of our undoing, I think, when the shape started to shift.
It had already gone a little bit wrong before. He could see it was going wrong and tried to change it, but it certainly didn't improve it.
Well, I mean, they nearly scored from the kickoff, didn't they, in the start of the second half? Was that the post chance when it hit the post?
Yeah, and they'd scored before Forshaw went off, which was the beginning of the shuffling, so it was after that first goal. And they didn't score again from open play, so it wasn't as terrible as Bielsa was making out when he says, "Oh, we couldn't solve anything." A fully fit Forshaw or the mythical or the central midfielder, if we had one to come off the bench and
there aren't any.
Up. If there was one, I'd love them to be here. I think that's where we do agree.
You're fine, because there aren't. There are
none. Then that might have helped, but it was also Tottenham getting into gear. Conte said something interesting about our physical intensity after the game, about how he was scared of it, and because he's only had the Tottenham players for no time at all, because they've all been on international break mostly, and he's been hasn't been there very long, and he is a big one for fitness. He wants them all to be Bielsa fit, is one of the things he's aiming to do, but there's no time for that, and so he was worried that if he asked his team to be as intense as Leeds in this match, they wouldn't be able to do it, and they would be knackered by the end, and it just wouldn't work because the players aren't ready for that. It sounds like he got to half time and thought, right, the only way we're going to do this is to match them and be as intense as them, and we can do it for 45 minutes. And he gave them the full Warnock and sent them out and did that, and that's where those stats about the running stats come in. But he was frightened of us in the first half, and so didn't kick Tottenham into gear. And then once he did kick Tottenham into gear, that's when the players they've got, like the big thing to fear was Lucas Moira Stewart getting the ball in midfield, turning and running, which is something we do not like, but is absolutely what he's good at. And that's where the midfield thing was kind of breaking down. It wasn't that they were passing well through midfield, because they were just getting the ball there and running from there. So Moira, Son, Kane can't run, but the rest of them just getting the ball and running doesn't give you the opportunities then for man-to-man. You can't cut off a pass because they're not passing. All you can do is try to tackle them or foul them, and I think that's the problem that we couldn't solve, because they were very good at it, and also you can't really bring Tyler Roberts on and ask him to tackle in midfield. It's not the job.
Are you saying Tyler Roberts is a bad player?
So he's a bad defender.
What's the safe word? We need to get out of this discussion. Paul asks about Tyro, and there was no real mention of him on the match ball. There's nothing to say on him, is there really?
Not really.
Inconsequential. Let's talk about Jackie and James, though. Dan James, who obviously scored. That run was brilliant. Pez reckons that was their best game of the season.
Which one am we going to drop when Rafinha's fit?
Good question. Stepped up in the absence of Rafinha is the point that was made. And actually, Calvin picked this out in the post-match, and Rob did the article, didn't he, which is on our blog. The good bit of the interview, which was about praising those two who really stepped up in the absence of Rafinha. And Chuck Late Biscuit, which I think is a great name, he says, Dan James did a lot of kicking at the goal. Mm-hmm. This is better than endlessly passing around the box. He just needs to kick harder and not at the keeper. Is that right, Coach Normanton?
Correct.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Well, you'd advise him put it in the net.
Yeah, away from the goal. I mean, the goal he scored, the goalkeeper wasn't really there, that
helps.
If you can create a situation where there's no goalkeeper, that makes it easier as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it will be interesting to see what happens, I think, because Rafinha obviously has to play. I thought Gelhardt did well enough to suggest he can play up the middle again, which is something we've seen James play when we've been reshuffling in the absence of Bamford. So it is interesting to see what will happen as a result of all that, because I thought they all did quite well.
Suddenly we've got too many players.
Bielsa does like his wingers, though, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Except Helder Costa.
And they're flexible too, because Dan James can play centrally. He doesn't just do it for us; he does it for Wales, and he got a assist for Wales. I also wrote on the blog about that was a bit comical, but his ideas were right and it worked. And Jackie's cross, well, not just the cross, but the way he took that
Emerson Royal. You can't think of his name, can you? Oh, you don't like it?
I was going to call him that numpty right back.
Yeah.
Took him on, made an absolute fool of him, getting round him, and then driving to the byline, and the cross is wonderful. You can't underrate how good that cross was. And good on Dan James as well for belting his way into the back post, because that's our right winger in the 6-yard box. And speaking of there, it comes up later, doesn't it? But giving Regulion there.
Regulion?
Regulion. Yes.
Julian Regulion.
Regulon. That guy getting a...
Who scored the other Spurs goal?
Man of the match. I honestly can't remember.
It was Holbergerg.
Oh. No, Holbear. I'm happy with Holbear.
But yeah, I mean, I do want to say the timing of that run, having seen the replays of it when it was broken down and analysed afterwards, how good was that? It really was. That the arriving late between two people to get there, which had no right to get there, as we said on the match ball, just looked like he was miles off it, and I was all ready to go. Oh well, never mind. Nice effort, Jackie. Sorry?
Regulin.
Okay.
Regulin. Reg.
Is that some sort of pronouncing app that you've just run that?
Yes.
through?
YouTube. Yeah.
Right.
Reg to his mates.
Great. And to wrap it up then, problems with Spurs' stadium, a skiffle band.
Yes, this was from. It wasn't even sent in as feedback. I stalked it off of his Instagram. This is Rob Holmes, who used to sell the magazine for us, but I noticed he was there. I don't know if he paid for this or whether he gets it through his job or something, but he was in obviously some posh bit of the Spurs stadium.
Which is all of it.
Yes, indeed. I did actually. My mate who was there was basically saying it's crap. It's awful
because it's so corporate.
Yeah, it's dreadful.
Great. I can't wait till we have it.
But yes, they had a skiffle band.
What's skiffle? Give me an impression of skiffle, because I don't know what that is. And all I can see is a tall double bass. I mean, who has a white double bass? The fucking pretentious twat.
Spurs people.
Yeah.
That's who.
What does skiffle sound like? Is it kind of like boom, boom, boom?
Yeah,
it's the old
like a little bit of sort of half-assed drumming mixed with a double bass is how I'd describe it.
I imagine it's like when the drummer uses like one of those brushes on his cymbal. Is that right?
Yeah, like lame percussion. Apologies to any skiffle fans. A washboard. Do you get a washboard?
We're going to have the skiffle ultras on us now.
I imagine
piling into the YouTube comments.
If there are any ultras we can probably take, it's probably the skiffle ultras. The soft lads, I reckon. And you could wrap a washboard around your head, it might hurt. But yeah, we don't want that. No to skiffle.
What I do like is there is a photo that Rob posted that you've stolen, Michael, and the foreground shows 3 or 4 people in shot looking at the camera knowingly. It's just, what is this?
Unimpressed.
What is this that I'm having to endure inside a football stadium?
One of those is Rob's dad, and yes, he does look like he's just thinking, it's all very well coming to watch this in a nice stadium, but can you please, it's as bad as the bagpipes man at Ellen Road.
Yeah.
Just don't turn up. It's so upsetting. Sorry, I know he's probably raising money for something, but Christ, it's hard to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we went to Edinburgh for a few days after we got married as a sort of just like a mini moon because we didn't go off anywhere that year. Just went on a little mini moon, and we stayed just off the Royal Mile. And of course, all you get on the Royal Mile is bagpipers. And there was one from outside our hotel window. About 8 o'clock on a morning, he fired up. Nothing against the bagpipes or Scots people in general.
You're the one who brought
Great bunch of lads.
Okay.
Great bunch of lads. But just get a different instrument. Is that all we're asking?
But not skiffle instruments.
That wraps up part 1 of Propaganda. Then flip over to the other show, part 2, here on YouTube. We'll see you there.
The Square Ball Podcast.